Hello friends, today we are going to learn the double entry system of bookkeeping or accounting, and after that we will also learn something about the accounting equation. So this double entry system of bookkeeping is actually based on Isaac Newton's law, which was for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Isaac Newton said that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So, for every transaction, the same concept has been applied in double entry system for recording of every transaction, and this double entry system was first advocated by Mr. Luca Pacioli of Italy way back in 1494. He was the first person to advocate this system as a system of recording transactions in accounts. So, under the double entry system, Luca Pacioli said that every transaction has two aspects. Every transaction has two aspects. One is the receiving aspect and other is the giving aspect. So, if you receive something in a transaction, you have to give something, and the value of the receiving aspect and the giving aspect will always be equal. So, a transaction has two aspects, one is the receiving aspect and other is the giving aspect, the value of which is always equal. So, the receiving aspect is also called the debit aspect. You must have heard two aspects of a transaction, debit and credit, and obviously the giving aspect is called the credit aspect. So, and let us discuss the receiving aspect first. Under the receiving aspect, we can receive benefits. We will receive benefits, and what can we do with the benefits? We can receive the benefits and we can utilize it, or we can receive the benefits and we can waste it. Say you received a benefit but you wasted it, you couldn't use it or utilize it, and you can receive a benefit and not utilize it but keep it for future use. You can receive a benefit but you do not utilize it currently and keep it for future use, so that your benefit remains unexpired for future use. So what do we call it? The benefits which are received and utilized, are called expenses. The benefits which are received but wasted are called losses, and the benefits which are received but remain unexpired for future use are called assets. I hope I am clear to you. This may sound a bit confusing, but it is a very straightforward way of decoding the receiving aspect of a transaction, that a receiving aspect of a transaction is always the debit aspect, and under the debit aspect you have either expenses, losses or assets. Now let us come to the credit aspect or the giving aspect. Under this you can have amount given by others. Let me write it down for a clear point of view. Amount given by others which you need to repay, and amount given by others which you don't need to repay. So amount given by others which you need to repay is called a, any guesses? It is called a liability. Amount which is given by others but is needed to be repaid by the business is called the liability of the business, and amount given by others which is not needed to be repaid by the business is called incomes or gains. So from this we are clear, we can now write the debit aspect, and the total value of both the aspects will always be equal, as we have derived from this part. So we can say that for the debit aspect we have expenses plus losses plus assets, and it would be equal to liabilities plus incomes plus gains. So in this video I would keep it up to this point only, and later we would start it from here, but the main motive of discussing the double entry system is the fact that every transaction can be decoded into two aspects, where one is the receiving aspect and other is the giving aspect. Let me try to explain this by an example. Let us say you bought a book. You buy a book for rupees 100, and you paid by credit card. So you buy a book for rupees 100 and you pay by credit card. So basically, when you are buying a book, let us see what is the receiving aspect. Let us decode this transaction into the receiving and the sacrificing aspect. So the receiving aspect would be the receipt of the book, because you are receiving a book in this transaction. So the receiving aspect would be the book, which is an asset, because all assets, expenses and losses come under the receiving aspect. We have written over here this is the receiving aspect, and it has been decoded into the sum total of expenses, losses and assets. So here the receiving aspect is the book, which is an asset, and thus its value will be rupees 100, and this will be surely a debit, the debit aspect. And under the sacrificing aspect, you have a liability which you have created by using your credit card. You have created a liability by using a credit card, and liabilities, incomes and gains are part of the sacrificing aspect, or under the umbrella of the credit aspect. So sacrificing here, you actually, by using a credit card, you incur a loan to your bank. You now owe your bank rupees 100. So here you incur a loan, which is a liability. The value would be same, rupees 100. We have previously discussed the Newton's third law, which is equal and opposite reaction. So the value will always be equal for both the aspects of the transaction. It can never happen that one aspect of the transaction has a value of rupees 100 and the other aspect has a value of rupees 200 or 150 or 50, whatever. It will always be the same for both the aspects, but the nature of both the aspects of the transaction will be just the opposite. If one is a debit, other would be a credit. If one is an asset, other would be a liability. If one is an income, other would be an expense. It cannot happen that both the aspects of a transaction are a receiving aspect, or both the aspects of a transaction are a sacrificing aspect. It cannot happen like that. One aspect has to be the receiving aspect and other aspect has to be the sacrificing aspect. I have repeated many times the same thing and I hope it is clear to you by now. So this would be the credit aspect. So we'll discuss the later part and we'll start from this position and we'll arrive at the accounting equation in the next video.